my intention was to try and shift my belief on life after death, to have a stronger, better belief, a positive belief, because of the general statistics of people that fear death, or don't fear death, because they have a strong, positive belief in life after death. They lead a positive life because their unconscious decisions aren't ruled by the timeline of, I've got to get all this done before I die, sort of, basically. And then I had that intention for a while, and then 8 to 10 weeks prior to probably that last podcast in the ayahuasca retreat, my dad passed, who I didn't have a strong relationship with at all. It was actually quite a bad one. But I wanted to try and connect with his soul or spirit or whatever, just to have hopefully, because I'd heard this through other podcasts of people connecting with someone who'd passed, soul and spirit, and having a conversation with soul to soul without all the human conditioning coming through, or I don't know, something along those lines. And then went up there it's facilitated in Yankalilla, and the shaman who flies in from overseas, she's Brazilian, so sometimes we've had medicine that she's made in Brazil. A couple of retreats we've had medicine from here in Australia, and this one, after the most recent one, was straight from the Amazon, and which I was super excited for. And we went into the first ceremony, and she sort of, this is what I got told by the other lady who helps facilitate, but this lady's been serving for close to 25 years, and she said that she's never ever given as much medicine to anyone as what she gives to me. It takes me ridiculous amounts to get there, but I also like being in a heavily altered state. And the first one, and then when the medicine hit, I was like, whoa, here we go, this is good. And what instantly came up was the medicine showing me where my brain, my heart, and my nervous system are in constant debate. So my brain, who thinks logically, and my heart that just wants to love, do everything from a place of love, and then my nervous system, which reacts on past traumas or past wounded parts of me through childhood. So my heart gets annoyed at my brain because it's logically you shouldn't be doing that, because my heart's trying to make decisions from feelings, and then my brain, my heart that just wants to love everyone, is conditioned, gets annoyed at my nervous system for taking so long to update, because you think when you have these emotional footprints in time of traumas, capital T traumas, lowercase 3 traumas that affect, one of me is a rejection wound from when I was in primary school.
I remember from the last podcast, you still hold on to
that's why I brought it up.
Rejection.
That's why I brought it up. Yeah. And then so that part of me, when I thinking of doing something where I have this rejection, and then the protector part comes in and will create a story don't do that. So it was fascinating. I spent 3 hours just looking and just going where the medicine was virtually getting to the point where brain getting, my brain, my heart, and my nervous system going, come on guys, get on the same page. Start working together. Brain, have some understanding from your heart, have some patience with your nervous system. He's not as fast as all of you guys to update to your current situation. And that was quite profound, because I work with my therapist, which is this internal family systems, which I mentioned in the last one. And then after I went through that, and I was just wow, that was fucking fascinating. And then I just felt something behind me, and I was oh my God, that's my fucking dad.
I felt the
presence of my dad behind me, and I was no, not today, I'm not ready for this. And then fast forwarding to the next day, and obviously I hadn't shared anything like I shared with you about what my intentions were. You don't really share those types of things. It's for you and you alone. and I was walking into the hall for the second ceremony, and the shaman come in, and she pulled me aside and she goes, Lee, like, your dad was here yesterday. And I was like, yeah, I know. And I had a small conversation with her about like what I was hoping to accomplish. And she's like, when did he pass? Like, she's Brazilian, so she's got a quite broken like English, and but I'll just regurgitate how I interpreted it. But I told her that like she goes, when did he pass? And I was like, I think about 9 weeks ago. And she said, he will be very much still in this realm. Like, you die and you start ascending, your spirit ascends. And so if I was to communicate with him, I can't communicate with him with how I would hope to have, which is like soul to soul, because he will be still very human-y. Like, that's my language. So I wouldn't be able to go to him and go, thanks, Dad, for being a fucking piece of shit of human that showed me how to be a better human, show me not what to be virtually. Because that his human essence would take that to heart, and he would descend, like where I'm not, I only want him to ascend. So I was like, okay, well, then I literally had no game plan for this conversation with my dad. And so we went in there and administered medicine. When it hit me, I was like, oh, just the most insane visuals, like it was full 5D like experience, like my whole body immersed into it. And I was like, okay, cool, what are we going to heal today? And she's like, and then in December, my retreat last year, she told me off. She's like, Lee, you need to stop looking for pain all the time. Like, pain is not the only teacher in this world. Like, you need to learn how to love, grow and expand through love and joy. And I was like, oh, okay, well, can you show me how to do that then? And she showed me how I look at pain, and I have a very healthy relationship with pain, but I'll look at a pain through a microscope. I'm like, okay, that's that feeling, what's underneath that? What part is that? And like, I'm zoom in constantly on everything that I'm feeling that is negative, but I brush over everything that's positive. Like, have a conversation. What I see this person, I'm like, oh, I love that. I love seeing that person. Like, why do I love seeing that person? What part of me loves seeing that person? Like, what? Because I feel like, for me personally, I always just graze over the things that I love and like. I don't look at them in depth as much as what I do with the things that hurt me or the emotions that feel bad. So I literally just basked. I went through every avenue of my life and every person that I know, and I was like, show me how to use this tool with this. And I just played with it for hours. I was like, this is fucking fascinating. It's so easy. And like, it's installed this sort of program in my mind now that I look at everything that I love and that I like and that I enjoy, and it makes me happy under a much deeper sort of lens. And then going into the third ceremony, I went up, I knelt down at the altar, and I said to the shaman, I said, look, I want to do it today, a thing with my dad. Because how they usually do it is you'll go up and have your first serving, and then it's around 45 minutes, and then you'll have your second serving, and then another maybe 30-40 minutes, and they'll give you a third serving. And then there is options. If you want more, you can have more. But I said, can I have all of mine in one go?
Jesus fucking Christ, really?
And because I just wanted to hit it hard and fast. And she said, I don't actually even really remember what she said. I know what she understood what I wanted, but she was like, what about if we just do this?
Yeah.
And I was like, as long as you know what I want and you've got something that might, And so first round, she gave me 2 cups. Next round, she gave me 3 cups instead of 1. And then she would, throughout the day, because they're in little shot glasses like this size, and then there's one where it had all like these hard, lumpy bits. And she's like, do you want that? And I was like, yeah. So I added some coconut water to it and mixed it up and down it. And I really don't know where I was in the room when it hit me. It just I could have been anywhere and had the same experience, to be honest. And I was just like, and just like immersed, insane visuals. And I sat there and I was like, okay, what do we need to do for this? How are we starting this? How are we doing it? And then instantaneously there was like this gut-wrenching pain inside my stomach. It was literally, if you can imagine someone sticking their hand into your bowel and like there being a plant rooted at the very bottom of your pelvis and then grabbing them at the roots and just pulling, and just as the roots are, it's like a tink, tink as the roots are snapping, and with that pain I just started crying, like relentlessly crying, and to describe the emotion or the feeling behind what I was crying was the feeling, if you can imagine being a little like child and like sticking your hands up in the air for your father to pick you up and just like crying and be like, Dad, like pick me up and love me, and him turning his back on you. And it was these tears which I don't think I've ever cried, and they just kept going. And then as I was trying to stop, the shaman just come behind me and put her arms around me, and I just like exploded with tears. And it didn't feel like I was ever gonna stop crying. I think I was crying for about 40 minutes. And I was like, I need to go to the toilet, and I'd get up, go to the toilet, come back down, sit down, boom, straight back into the tears. It was like the well of unshed tears. And I just honestly didn't think I was ever going to stop crying. It was just relentless was the only thing that comes up to describe it. And when that finished, it was like this weight just lifted off me. The visuals changed, my whole energy changed. And then what was underneath, what felt like, that plant that I'd ripped up of this pain, which I'd been buried in the lowest part of my solar plexus, was this love for my dad, which I never thought I had. Like when he died, I didn't shed a tear at all. I didn't feel anything at all. I thought that I'd already cried what I didn't have as a child, and I had forgiven him. I'd learned to forgive him. I didn't have any negative feelings towards him. I understood.
So at this, sorry for interrupting, but as it stands now, you have no negative feeling.
I haven't had any negative feelings to him for a long time since I went down the path of forgiveness of him, like to get to that point. He didn't really ever have any control over my emotions, which is like why I thought that why I didn't cry when he died. And then, but through that last ceremony, I realized that like I'd never cried the tears of my like little boy that didn't have a dad like turn up for him. And when underneath that, all that pain and those tears, I found this love for him, which was just for being my dad. And then the medicine, like when I say the medicine speaks, there's never a voice, but there's a message, and you understand it, and like I can articulate what she says to me, but I didn't actually hear the words. And then I would say like, what are we doing now? And then this love, she just started growing it and growing it to like, and we spent so long doing this to the point where like I wasn't physically like this, but I felt like my chest was being ripped open. And I don't know if you've ever watched Dragon Ball Z, where he grows a spirit ball. Yeah, that's what was what it resembled for me. We were just like growing it and growing it. to the point where there was literally no room in my field for anything other than this love, like, which we just growing. That's all I could feel, was she was just throwing things at me, and it was just like I was understanding everything to do with my resistance to loving my dad, and to the point where felt like I was like this, and I said, I can't stretch this anymore. And she was like, yes, we can, and it just like ripped me open, like just felt like my whole chest exploded, and this love just went took up the whole room. And then when that was done, and then the visual fields changed, and then there was this, it was the resemblance of a human. There wasn't like any details of it being my dad, but I knew it was my dad, and he was there in front of me, and I didn't physically get up, but like I did get up. I got up behind him, and he was back turned to me, but he had all this weight on him, like, and I just started unloading it off his shoulders, and just like peeling him off and throwing him off and peeling him off. And for me, like, it's knowing that was resembling all the guilt and the shame that he had been carrying for who he was on this planet. And then when that was all off him, then I just watched him ascend upwards into like the light. It was probably the most intense, like, beautiful experience I've ever experienced in my life. And then I was sitting there the next day, and I put the broadcast, like, my heart rate on my heart watch, and I looked down, and it was like my heart rate still to this day it sits almost 15 beats lower than what it ever has.
Yeah, right. Just from the anxiety, or that anxiety out of your system.
Yeah, I think it was just like, psychosomatic,
just that burden,
pain that I'd never even looked at. Didn't even know it was there, to be honest.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was.
That's a bloody intense. And that was all on the third day.
That was the third day, yeah.
So that was like basically the pinnacle of the whole trip. That third day.
Yeah, and then the fourth day, I usually don't really ever feel strung out from sitting Aya, but I was on the fourth day. I was like, I can't believe I've got one more to go.
Yeah.
Usually I'm just like, let's do it again, and I was just like, I usually can't believe I've got to do one of these.
Yeah.
And she did the same thing. She dosed me up the same as what she did on the third day. I just said to the medicine, I was like, do whatever you want. Do whatever you want today. And it was just, I don't have words for the fourth day. It was so profound. She was just weaving. It was like she was changing my wake up of how I see the world. I was just stood there. I stood the whole ceremony.